It's always a rare treat when I can get clients to come to my office. Since COVID, a lot of my interactions with my clients have been via Zoom, but a lot of my baby boomers and silent generation clients actually like to come into the office. I had a rare treat this week. I had a 23-year-old in my office who is Gen Z, and they had a lot of wonderful questions. And I wanted to ask the bigger question that a lot of clients are asking, whether they're young or old. And it's why in 2024, why do things seem so much harder today? Stay with me. First things first, my older clients, the baby boomer and the silent generation, have seen it all. And they have to remind me of that when they're doing their appointments and they're in office with me. They've seen wars, they've seen inflation, they've seen, stagflation, they've seen crashes in the market, they've seen market comebacks, they've seen it and experienced it all. A lot of my younger clients, the Gen Xers, the millennials, and the Gen Zers, haven't lived long enough to experience all those things just yet. And so they're really put off by things like inflation. So the first factor of why things seem harder right now is really inflation. We printed money, we gave it away for 2.5 years as part of the COVID stimulus. There were a lot of dollars in circulation. At the same time, there were constraints in the supply chains. You couldn't get certain products, you couldn't get certain services, you couldn't get certain goods for a very long period of time while COVID was happening or in the immediate aftermath of COVID. When there's too many dollars chasing too few goods and services, you get inflation. And that's exactly what we got. It got pretty bad in 2022, almost up to double-digit inflation, and has steadily come down since. And here in October 24, we just released the September 2024 numbers, and inflation in September 24 was at 2.4%. So it's moving back into the 2% zone where the feds really would like to see inflation. But inflation wreaks havoc on an economy. And even when inflation starts coming down to the point where we are now, it doesn't mean there's going to be a rewind on those price increases that have happened over the past 2.5, 3, 4 years. Basically, prices are now stuck at this higher level, and we all have to adjust. But this means that a dollar goes a lot less further than it went simply 5 years ago. You can simply buy fewer goods and services with that dollar than you could buy in 2019. There still are some supply chain constraints. I have a client who went to buy a car this weekend, and it's a pretty popular car model. It's one of the most popular car models in America. And he was saying this car was basically non-existent on lots, and the lots that did have them, they were basically sold almost immediately. I remember when you used to be able to go car shopping and you can go to a car dealer and, there were just dozens of cars sitting around and you pick, which car you wanted to test drive and select the color and you were off and on your merry way. Now you often have to order cars months in advance, and the car that you want, if it's a very popular car model, may not be available for some period of time. So when you have constraints in the supply chain like that, it fuels inflation and price increases because people will pay more money for the fewer products, the cars that are currently available. So number one reason why stuff feels so hard right now is inflation, and we're just coming off of a very strong inflationary cycle. The next reason why things feel so hard, interest rates are pretty darn high. They're coming down, which is very good, and the stock market likes to see that. But a lot of economic activity in our economy is driven by something called leverage. That's basically borrowing money at a low interest rate and putting that money to work in an income generating activity that can produce a higher rate of return. If I can borrow your dollar at 2% interest rate and pay that dollar or the interest on that dollar, and take that same dollar and put it into an investment that will return me 15%, I've done a very good thing. I've generated income on that money and I can still service the debt. Now, if interest rates suddenly skyrocket to 8% and the income generating asset is only producing 15%, I only have a 7% spread there. So I have far less income coming in on that income producing asset than I had when interest rates were at 2%. So on a large scale, it basically slows economic activity. You can sell more houses at a higher price at 2% interest rate on a mortgage than you can at a 10% rate on mortgage. So over the past several years, in an effort to control inflation, we've seen interest rates skyrocket. Interest rates had to go up in order to bring inflation down. And it's a good thing that Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Board, did rapidly raise interest rates to account for the inflation. He's been very conservative in taking interest rates down in order not to spike inflation. But what does that mean where we are right now in October 2024? Borrowing money is super expensive. It's not easy to get a mortgage. Mortgages are at about 6%. The underwriting standards are much higher. You can buy less house when you have a 6% mortgage, but it means that housing prices became more negotiable when interest rates are high. So it's a mixed bag, but basically there's less economic activity going on using leverage, borrowed money. And economic activities around real estate and other places in the economy that uses a lot of leverage really slowed down because of inflation. And we're feeling that in the broader economic sphere. Next reason, and this is a huge reason, and this absolutely terrifies me as a working person. Salaries have not kept up with the cost of living in the United States, and now there is a big discrepancy between what the average job pays and what the cost of living in American society nets out to. When you add up things like housing, transportation, food, clothing, medical care, education, the rate of inflation for those different things far outstrip the average salary of the average American. So the average American makes, I think, about $59,000 a year. And unless you're married or in a dual income household, it's really, really tough to live on that $59,000 a year in many parts of the nation. In many parts of the nation, you cannot live on the $59,000 a year. I wouldn't even try that in a San Francisco or New York or LA. So you have this, and this has been brewing for many years. This isn't something that just cropped up, but it affects people, especially younger people who often don't get paid that much. Your salary nowhere near matches the cost of living or the cost of housing, education, transportation, medical care in the United States. You constantly feel like you are being left behind. So this is a big one. The final one that I want to say, and I've noticed this in my own job, jobs that are good that come with benefits, benefits are getting tougher. Benefits are getting much tougher. Even benefits that are guaranteed to us as workers, like, for example, healthcare. There's a lot of healthcare plans that are high deductibles, but I'm noticing a lot of things that health plans used to cover, they either no longer cover or they partially cover. And that is absolutely terrifying because you have to cover whatever gap is in the system out of your own pocket. And our medical system in the US is absolutely wild. You go to a doctor, you have no idea how much that medical appointment will cost. They do not tell you in advance. You have no idea how much your medical insurance will pay. And they just simply materialize a bill that they send you in the mail, and you are expected to cover the difference. I've never seen such a wild medical system that absolutely there's no transparency, there's no explanation, and it doesn't make much sense. I don't know about you, but I'm a relatively healthy woman, and I still spend a considerable amount of money out of pocket every year for things that my medical plan should cover or once covered, but just no longer cover because the medical system and the medical plan has changed. So changing benefits, I think, are really catching a lot of Americans, and Americans are having to cough up more money for basics like glasses, dental care, medical care, where we didn't have to cover anything before. So there you have it, a financial advisor's take on why things feel so hard right now. Why do you feel things feel so hard right now? Leave it in the comments section. And if you found this information useful, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.